Hello, it's Margaret, Dexter Realty. Welcome to another episode of Expert Interview. And today I have the great pleasure of having our guest speaker, Terry Kaplan. He works with Telus, but he also volunteers with Telus Wise program. And Telus Wise program is a program to bring awareness and empower Canadians to stay safe in the digital world. So Terry, and especially during this whole COVID-19, I think we were already in the digital world, but I think during this period, we just ramped it right up, probably by 100%, whether it be adult working from home or kids learning from home. I've always felt that as a professional, it's our responsibility and obligation to keep our information safe and just being safe in navigating through this digital world. But now I've been thrown into the curveball of trying to keep my kids safe in this digital world when before they always tell us to limit your screen time, be careful what you play, but now all of a sudden they're on Google Meet. They probably have more Zoom meeting than me. So what kind of tips and advice would you give to keep us safe in this new world?
Yes, well, thank you first of all for having me.
Yeah.
Hopefully I can provide you with a few tips and suggestions. As you mentioned, Telus Wise, we are sort of an outreach program as part of Telus to, as you mentioned, empower Canadians to stay safe in a digital world. And we run workshops for elementary kids all the way up through to high school parents and even seniors. And
Hmm.
the idea is that as we as a company provide internet access for Canadians all across the country, we want to make sure that they are able to navigate it safely and
Right.
bring up some good questions. And um, you know, I think back to the middle of March and when everyone said to go home and don't come into work, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden, internet traffic increased probably 100-fold. I don't know exactly, but everyone's all of a sudden having to log in, to work from home, and companies had to even scramble to create virtual private networks, some things that they didn't even have going because their workforce may not have worked from home, or perhaps they had a system in place but it was being taxed to its limits. So there's a
Right.
lot of things that changed, middle of March, and as we progress through it, there's a lot of things that are probably going to stick with us. Companies have already said now, as we move back into opening things up, that they're going to refocus their attention on having their employees work from home more often or even full time, give them the choice.
Or maybe even creating a hybrid situation.
Exactly, right? Like, and so as we are fully immersed in this digital world and this digital world is transforming us, the the introduction of COVID-19 to our society, whether it was obviously not in a good way, has also been something that is going to transform our society. And I think that there are going to be more opportunities for obviously working at home for adults, but also learning opportunities for children. And you bring up some great points. How do you navigate keeping your kids safe? How do you know what to avoid, where not to go on the internet? Because things are simple as a click away, and sometimes you may inadvertently click on something you didn't intend to, and all of a sudden, you're where you definitely didn't want to be. So I would say, to begin with, it's not so much about being a tech expert, and this is what we try and communicate to parents. It's about as adults, we have the ability to critical think,
Mm.
or think critically. We also have, a bit more life experience in terms of ethics and being good citizens. And that translates to being good digital citizens too, right? Because as I emphasize to students in the workshops, it's not all about, um, it is about, being what you do in the offline world, in the real world, should also carry with you what you do in the online world. How you
Right.
behave in real life is also how you should behave online. And as parents, we teach our children how to behave in the real world. Likewise, we should also be teaching them how to behave online. And you don't have to be an expert and know the latest apps and know the latest social media trends to understand that. It's about learning with your children and having an open line of communication. And that's the most important thing, is
Yeah.
open communication. Being able to sit down with your children and tell them that the internet is here. The internet is not some big scary monster, but it is going to be a part of their daily life. Our children nowadays are what we call internet or digital natives. They were born into this world.
Right. Yes.
We
We're
are
digital immigrants.
we are digital immigrants, right? I grew up without the internet, but when I was in high school, it was already when the internet was coming. I remember getting my first dial-up modem and having to yell around the house that I was going to connect to the internet, so please no one pick up the phone, so I could connect with my incredibly slow modem and hopefully go find something on. I'm guessing at the time would have been like Yahoo or something crazy like that.
QQ.
Yeah. So yeah, so we've come a long way, right? We've come a very, very long way in that.
Yeah.
And our children are every day they're immersed in it. And I'm just going to quickly share with you this one screen that I have, and it's called Internet Live Stats. And what this basically is it's a website I show when I do these workshops, especially for parents. And what it's basically doing is it connects, obviously it's a website, so it accesses the timestamp on your computer. So it knows the time that your IP address is at, like, so obviously we're Pacific Daylight Time. And so what it's basically saying is Google searches today, and today being since 12 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time, there have been almost 6 billion, okay? Since 12 midnight Pacific Daylight Time, there have been 644 million tweets sent. 6 billion videos viewed on YouTube, right? 71 million photos uploaded today on Instagram. If we kind of scroll down, Facebook active users, so that's people currently active on Facebook, 2.5 billion. And we're talking billions here, right? Here's an interesting one, 130,000 websites hacked today. Now, these aren't your big giant TD banks or, big giant corporations. These could be anything, right? But as statistics go, this is what they're kind of looking at. 3.5 million smartphones sold today, right? Internet traffic, 6.7 billion gigabytes worth of data. So that's basically uploading and downloading data. And the reason I share this is that it highlights the fact that this is what our children are going to be growing up in. And in a way, there's no way to escape that. It's something that's going to be with them. It's something that they're already immersed in. As they get older, it's going to be social media. As they get, even setting up something basic like an email account. And then, yeah, it's social media. It's Twitter or Instagram or TikTok, obviously. And then as they get older, it's applying to universities if they choose to go post-secondary. It's applying for jobs. Everything is online now, right? And you can't escape from it. You can't get away from it. So the only thing you can do is learn how to navigate it safely.
Mm-hmm. So how do you do that?
Good question. Well,
It's so overwhelming. When I was looking at these stats, I am in awe of, how many gigabytes being upload, download, YouTube being watched, or how many user on Facebook, active user, and even just counting from last like midnight today, which is, you know, in the grand scheme of things, not that long.
for sure, and it isn't. I mean, if you think about it, we're obviously approaching, closer to the end of today's day, so those numbers are quite high. But it'll reset, at midnight. I can send you the link later. You can check it out. It's just if you Google Internet Live Stats, click the first link. It's there. Look at it tomorrow morning and see, and then check it out later. We can even come back to it later and see if what the changes are. And really, what it comes down to is again, I point that site out because it kind of shows parents especially how overwhelming things can be, just as you said. But the idea is that you kind of have to take a step back and realize that it's just a bunch of numbers, as the internet is. It's basically a bunch of zeros and ones or a bunch of other numbers that you're looking at. And while you may not be an expert, there's no reason why you can't share with your children. And again, like I said, it's about being able to instill values into your children and help them navigate through, versus actually showing them the technological capabilities of an app or how to change a filter on when you take a photo.
Oh, no. I think children teach us that.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, I grew up and I was fortunate enough to have internet from, early on. And I learned it, and I did teach my parents little bits here and there. So, you know, as it goes now, the next generation will probably teach us things that we are stuck in our ways, unwilling to learn, or just, you know, don't have the time to learn. And so it's about kind of a trade-off, is that, you know, you work with them, you teach them the critical thinking, being media smart, being a good digital citizen, and they can teach you how to make a really cool viral video on TikTok. So, you know, but that's the important thing. And that's, again, it's the open communication. It's going through these apps, going through these social media sites, and kind of saying, well, you know what, maybe this is something that is pretty cool, but maybe we should limit what you do and what you're putting on there. And that's the other thing, is, you know, as we teach our children in the real world, to be cautious about who you give information to, right? You wouldn't walk down the street and just find any random stranger and give them your name and address and the school you go to, and your favorite foods and everything else. And the same way, you wouldn't go on the internet and do that. And
Okay.
I it's interesting because someone posted recently on social media, is a bit of a joke, but, you know, when we grew up, what were we told? We were told not to give out our information to strangers and not
Yeah.
to get into cars with strangers.
Yeah.
And nowadays on social media, we're giving out all our information, and with Uber, we're getting into cars with complete strangers. So the world has changed a bit, right? It's obviously understanding that there is a change in our level of trust and our level of comfort with certain aspects of our daily lives. Is it faster, cheaper, easier to call an Uber than a taxi? Maybe in some places. So we've decided that, you know what, that's an acceptable change in our mentality and our thought process in terms of doing that versus obviously getting into a car with a stranger. And we all know the idea of the getting into a car with a stranger as a child, but again, right, there are things that we have decided that are okay in today's society, because
Mm.
the digital world has changed things for us, right? Just like
Wow.
Facebook or Instagram, you know, we post pictures, we post messages, we post our favorite likes and dislikes, and all that information is out there on the internet, in the world, for the world to see. So again, we've decided that we'd rather share that stuff than keep it to ourselves in private in our home.
Well, actually, you just mentioned a really good point. You mentioned about being a good digital citizen. I found that internet is even more unforgiving than in real person. There's a lot of time when you say something, I mean, there's a possibility that the other person might actually forget. But once you post something, it's out there, and
It
it's
is.
going to be really hard to take it back.
It is, and that's one key thing we mentioned to students as well as parents, is that once you post something on the internet, it is there forever. Even if you
Right.
decide 5 seconds later that you're going to get rid of it, most likely someone has already screenshot it, because it actually only takes less than a second to actually screenshot something from your
Right.
phone or from
Right.
your computer. And so
It's just a press of a button. That's it.
it is. And so, you know, I liken it to sending an email to my boss at work. I will type up the email, I will reread it, I will change things, I'll edit things, I'll make it more clear, I'll make sure I'm trying to get my message across. And then after rereading it and revising it several times, I'll hit send. On the internet, you kind of have to take the same mentality. If you want to post a comment, type it up, read it, reread it, and then take the extra step to even think about, you know, what am I actually saying? What is my message? Am I posting something out of anger? Am I posting something out of frustration? You know, am I saying things that perhaps might not come across the right way? Because it's one thing for you and I to have a conversation and see our facial expressions
And
and
hear
kind
the
of
tone of voice.
hear the intonation of what you're saying. It's another thing to read a message on Instagram or on
Yeah.
Facebook or, you know, Twitter, and not understand what the person's saying. You know, there are thousands of emojis that we can use, but even those don't necessarily convey intent. And so, you know, especially for youth and children who are on the internet and starting in the world of social media, it's very, very important for them to think before they click send, right, or tap send.
Actually, you just mentioned a point in because I've been a Toastmaster for six years, and the one thing that we have been taught is 73855. Basically, it's a percentage of how our message get across. 7% is just the word alone. But
Mhm.
38% is the intonation, and 55 is the facial expression and body language.
Yeah,
When you type up a message, really, you're only sending 7% of what you're intending to get across.
exactly.
You're lacking the 93% behind.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
it's easy to be misinterpreted or take it the wrong way or perceived differently.
Oh, for sure. And it's important again as parents for us to not be monitoring, over a child's shoulder as they're typing up a message, but help them to understand that what they send and what they put out there is never going to be able to be taken away. So once it's there for good. And if there's something that they didn't necessarily want to say, they should just not say it. And I've had situations, in workshops where I've mentioned this to students. They say, "Well, I can just delete it in a few seconds." I said, "You know what? It takes me less than a second to take a screenshot of something." And so right then and there, as soon if I'm monitoring my notifications and I see that Margaret's posted a comment on my Instagram page and I tap the link, it takes me there and within a second, and I see something that, maybe she realized 10 seconds later that she didn't want to type. It's too late. I've already taken a screenshot of it, right? And now
Yeah,
it's on the internet forever. And now I can post that on my Instagram page and she can't do anything about that. So
right.
again, it's very, you have to be very cautious, and you just have to be able to teach your children and have that conversation with them and say, look, if someone's doing something online that you don't necessarily like, come and talk to me as a parent. We'll try and help you problem solve, especially if it's something that has to do with you or your friends or family. If it's some random person somewhere in the world, really the best thing you can do is ignore them, because chances are getting into a debate with someone who has a differing opinion or is saying something that is inflammatory or bullying really isn't going to get you anywhere. The best thing to do is to report it. We always say report it. Stop what you're doing, report it, take a screenshot, and if it escalates or get worse, then obviously get parents involved. If you can get the police involved to help them. But really at the end of the day, it's just walk away from people who are trying to do things online that obviously are inflammatory or cyberbullying or just being trolls. So
Oh my goodness, yeah. Um, I, to be honest, I personally, my account has been hacked several times. And I remember I have to go through the whole screenshot, reporting, and just anxiety and the stress. Just
mhm,
even listening and hearing you talk, it's taking
mhm.
me back to that level of stress. And I can only imagine what a child have to go through. Now, my question is, when you say you need to have an open communication and you talk with your children, what age do you think is the best age group to talk to, and how early should this conversation start?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I mean, we do our workshops start at as low as grade two.
Okay, so
Yeah,
like 8.
yeah, eight. We do, Telus Wise. Our first workshop is Telus Wise Footprint. That's for grades 2 to 6, and that's basically it's designed to help students learn how to be good digital citizens and keep their digital footprint clean. And the analogy that I always bring up is when you walk along a beach and you step through the sand, you look back and you see your footprints. Well, 15, 20 minutes later, when the tide comes in, those footprints disappear. Your digital footprint is going to be there forever, and that'll carry with you for your entire life, especially with internet nowadays. So something that you post at 15 years old, when maybe you were angry because a company didn't give you a deal, or maybe something that you bought from them wasn't great and you said something really bad about the company, and then now you're 22 and you're trying to get a job with them. Well, guess what?
Oh
They
my
look back at your
goodness.
social media history, they see the fact that you said something negative about them, and they don't hire you. So we kind of get into the fact that your digital footprint is hugely important. It's something that you need to protect. And just to kind of step back a bit about, you mentioned that you'd been hacked before. I think what's important to also realize is that, your digital footprint is something you should fiercely protect and fiercely be cautious of what you post online. But your own privacy on the internet is hugely important too. And a lot of times, especially now in the last few months because of COVID, people are on social media a lot more. They're posting on social media a lot more. And one thing that I've seen trending on Facebook seems to be more frequently is these posts that people share where they talk about their favorite color or what kind of you know, gem or birthstone or whatever else, or those types of things, or
Oh,
you
how
know,
or what animal do you pick?
exactly. And
Yeah.
what people need to be cautious of those about is that those are actually mining your information. And if you think too, when you set up an account online, whatever account it might be, they ask you for your username and email and a password, but they
Right.
also ask you for security questions. For example, what's your favorite pet? What's your favorite color? What's your
Oh.
favorite, where were you, what was the street that you grew up on?
Where's
And
your favorite holiday?
exactly. And so, you know, when people are posting that, oh, I would love to go to Hawaii, and then I would love to go to the Maldives, and then I would love to go to Mexico. Well, those are the questions that they're trying to data mine.
Oh my
And you
goodness.
know, all they have to do then is put together that with some email addresses, and hackers nowadays are pretty sophisticated with the ways they can get information. So I always try and tell people, be cautious about these types of things, because the 2 minutes of fun and finding out that, you know, you are most like you know, Captain Kirk from Star Trek versus Captain Picard might not necessarily be, you know, legit. And that one, I mean, depends on the source. And that one, for example, I actually bring up because I saw it recently. It was actually from the Star Trek website. So you know, I'm pretty sure that one's fairly legit. But you know, other ones that you see people posting, or ones where it says you know, like and share this and post this and you can win a Toyota pickup truck. Well, if you actually look at that Facebook page, it's actually not legitimately from Toyota, the company. It's someone who created a page and again is trying to get, you know, because they get access to some bits of your information on Facebook or social media, they're trying to get access to that information. And there is no
Mm,
pickup truck for anyone to win. So those are the types of things that, you know, as adults we need to be aware of, right? There's scams on the phone, there's scams on the internet, everything nowadays. And we need to obviously try and teach our kids about being wise. And that comes as obviously they get older. But, you know, with regards to exposure, go back to, you know, nowadays children are as young as 1 or 2 or even 3 exposed to iPads, or, you know, exposed to these types of apps. And you know, they're learning how to swipe on screens and not even learning how to type anymore, right? Like for me it was learning how to type in high school, and now kids at 3 years old know how to swipe and zoom in on screens and do all these sorts of fancy things with touch screens. So they're already being exposed to it from a young age. And you know, as they get older, it's about giving them limitations, right? Like, you know, screen time. And obviously in this day and age with COVID, it is harder. And that was one of your earlier questions about screen
right.
time, is you can't necessarily limit them with regards to their total screen time, because yeah, they're on Google Meet with their teacher, they're doing homework on the computer now, right? Downloading assignments from Google Classroom, or doing research on Google or on the internet about something. And so they do have more screen time. But I think then it's a balance of, okay, well, you know, you have your homework to do, and why don't you do a little bit of that now, take a break, go outside, especially in the warm weather, get some fresh air, or go build some Lego, or go do something else, and then come back and do some more later, right? I think you just have to find that balance. And you know, I think the trick is that they're not doing, say, an hour or 2 hours of schoolwork a day and then going on social media for 6 hours, right? With chatting with their friends is one thing, but you know, um, we've kind of introduced our daughter to some chat apps. So she's got Facebook Messenger, and you know, she's also using iMessage just to chat with myself and my wife, and you know, just some family members and a couple of her friends. But you know, we've also told her that, you know, you don't have to respond right away, or you
Mm-hmm.
can always respond and say, you know what, I'm just busy right now, I'll get back to you later. And as adults, we kind of need to learn to do that ourselves sometimes.
I yes.
You know, not the instantaneous reply or anything else, unless it's urgent, of course. But you know, that's the thing. And so for us to teach her that, I realized she didn't know. She just didn't know, or didn't have the knowledge that she could kind of say, you know what, I'll chat with you later, or I'll FaceTime with you later. And then she can go out and do whatever she likes to do, like build Lego, or you know, go outside and scooter, ride her bike, something like that, right?
Actually,
So
yeah, I really like that, just to build in that permission at such an early age, rather than always being tied to it, because there's the FOMO and I think fear of missing out, right?
yeah,
That fear of missing out is is the fact that you're always constantly wanting to make sure you're not missing anything.
Mhm.
It's to train our brain to say, hey, you know what? It's okay. It's
Yeah,
okay. The world's still going to be here, even if you don't answer that message or check on your latest like. It's okay. The like is still going to be there. If it's going to be there, it will still be there. And I found that a lot of the, if you're addicted to it, it's so easy to slip into that addiction.
it is. And I'm gonna, go back to that inner live stats quickly and say, look, those who are on Twitter, there have been 650, almost 655 million tweets sent today.
Mm-hmm.
The fear of missing out, are you going to be able to read all 655 million tweets? No. And so, really there's a bit of the idea of what we like to say in one of our workshops called the joy of missing out.
Right, the
Instead of
JOMO.
words, JOMO. It's,
Yeah.
am I really missing something crucially important? Do I really want to or need to go down the rabbit hole of Twitter? Because frankly speaking, sometimes Twitter can be a rabbit hole, right? Because Twitter is one of those apps that has a lot of people with differing opinions, and sometimes you
Yeah.
get trapped in that rabbit hole of reading through, and maybe some opinions differ from yours, so you get frustrated about it. And what I would suggest is I'll just quickly take you to our Telus Wise page. It's just telus.com/wise. And there are resources in here for everything and anything that you might want to find out about. So if you go to
Oh,
explore for adults and parents, right? First one here, ideas for tech rules at home. Other resources for parents. There's a very important one here, helping our kids navigate our digital world guide. And I've actually got that one open here. It's a PDF. You can obviously download it for free off of the Telus Wise website. And it even starts off from an early age, right? There's a little girl with her very first, looks like maybe Samsung or iPhone. And it even says more than a third of Canadian kids under the age of 4 have their own tablet. So really it's a great guide. It gives you kind of some general guidelines, modeling of good habits. As parents, we're notorious for saying put your phone down, put your tablet down, and then going back to texting or looking at the latest Instagram or Facebook posts. So
yeah.
model good habits. Try to put your phone down when you can as well. Spend the time, be part of that JOMO, that joy of missing out, and miss out on the social media to spend time with your family. And again, how much screen time is okay for my kids? And it's these are guidelines, and again, we're in a different age, right? COVID times are very different than regular times, but I think it's what you feel comfortable with. And every parent's going to be different, every child is going to be different, and so it's just having understanding and going through the guide to kind of have some ideas, and whether or not those ideas apply to you and your family. If they do, great. If they don't, at least it gives you some things to think about.
Oh my gosh, that's wonderful. Yeah, I also realized that there's guidelines for parents and or adults on their work environment as well. But I think right now what you have hit one of the key point is just critically thinking and being a good digital role model and good digital citizenship. And that's actually kind of a rule in my house, no phone on dining table. So when we eat,
Mhm.
we all, well, I mean, it's just my husband and I, but our kids don't have phones. And so we just put them away and we
Yeah.
don't look at it. We don't answer calls, and dinner is dinner time. Then that's it.
Yeah, no, it's and that's the thing. There's a Pew Research study that was done actually a couple of years ago. Um, Sorry, I'm just trying to find the. Yeah, it was a Pew Research Center, how teens and parents navigate screen time and device distractions. And the article, it's a couple of years old, but it basically says that 54% of U.S. teens say they spend too much time on their cell phones, and 2/3 of parents express concern over their teen screen time. But then when you actually look at the data, they asked teens and parents if you check your phone for messages as soon as you wake up. 72% said of teens said often or sometimes. So, more or less, more than probably 50%. 57% of parents said the same thing. So, the percentages aren't that far off. And another one that I just want to bring up too is 6 in 10 parents regularly feel obligated to immediately respond to messages on their phone. And so, 60% of parents who are saying this are also saying their teens or children spend way too much time on the phone. So, I think again it goes back to modeling behavior, and having a no phone dinner time, or maybe not picking it up first thing when you wake up in the morning, or understanding that you don't have to always be scrolling and scanning the latest Instagram post or latest Twitter or whatever else, and it's okay to miss out on a few things.
So can you give me the website for that Telus Wise again?
Yeah,
www.
for sure. It's www.telus.com/wise. And there are resources. I'll share it again. There are lots of great resources on here. We've got exploring for adults and parents, for kids, for youth, for seniors. There's information for teachers, mostly about booking our workshops. Obviously, at this point, because of COVID, our workshops are on hold. However, we are putting our workshops online, so definitely encourage parents to take the workshops with their kids.
Mm,
They are available online. Book an in-person workshop, or you can access an online workshop. So you just have to
oh,
click on the
okay.
workshop and then click on access, and it should take you right to there. We've
And I
also,
like that it's only 30 minutes. So even for a child to sit through 30 minutes is actually quite acceptable.
they are, yeah. And we've got different ones. So like I said, we've got the footprint workshop, which is again a bit more for the younger kids, those who are not necessarily fully exposed to social media, but kind of learning a bit more about it or hear about it from their friends or their parents, and they want to know more about it. They want to be more involved with it. So it kind of gives them an idea again about having a safe digital footprint.
Hmm.
In Control, it's more about cyberbullying, again, for older kids, identity theft, protecting and positively growing your online reputation. So again, it really still focuses on your digital footprint, but focusing again more on things that, those who are preteen and teenagers might experience more than younger kids. Um,
Okay.
and then we've got Impact, which is specifically about cyberbullying. And this is the sole focus of the workshop on how to um, best manage cyberbullying if you or yourself are being cyberbullied or your friends being cyberbullied. Again, it's like, in a way, being bullied in real life, where you try and find a trusted adult and talk to them.
Yeah.
But obviously, being online, it's a little bit different, and there are different experiences that kids have. So really, it's focusing on ways that you can either try and avoid the bully, or protect yourself by, like I said earlier, taking screenshots, or documenting what they're doing to you, so that at least you can get the help that you need.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've got this one called Telus Wise Happiness, and this is really all about FOMO and JOMO. It's about the fear of missing out, and the joy of missing out, and building a healthy relationship with technology. We also do this workshop for adults, and it's been greatly received by both. And then again, we also have Telus Wise for teachers and parents. We do for PACs, we do for teachers. And again, there's a lot that covers off. It goes through everything from internet, digital safety, cybersecurity, like cyber safety, to again screen time with your kids, what apps are out there, how to find out information on that. So great workshops. Right now we've only got we've got a few of them online. The Footprint and In Control are online, but we are working to get the rest of them online as well,
Oh,
as we
that's
can't do
great.
in-person workshops
I
at this
think
point in time.
these are going to be super valuable information that I, I would really appreciate to learn and to be more aware of, whether for myself or for my children. So,
For sure. And if you're looking for resources, for example, just if you don't want to do a workshop, or you don't have time for a workshop at this point in time, I highly recommend our social media, especially for parents whose kids are asking about it. These are small little lesson plans and tips and guides to social media. For example, don't believe everything on social media. A quick guide to TikTok, which is obviously the latest craze
yeah.
hitting social media. Are you in control of your online reputation? So there's articles, there's smaller readings, quicker readings, and then you can even tag or search by different topics,
Okay.
privacy and security, you know, um, how to stay safe, information on the latest scams that people are seeing online. And in fact, there's even one, let me just take us to online safety. I think this was the one. Yeah, COVID scams. So here's one that's actually
Oh,
quite relevant. Any scams that are kind of being seen online now are kind of highlighted, at least some of them, on this article.
okay. Yeah. So I'll put a star on that, and I hope you don't mind, but on my if when I do post it up, I'd like to add that website on there to bring
For
some more
sure.
awareness.
By all means.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you, Terry. And today I learned a lot. I've made tons of notes, and I really appreciate your time and your willingness to come and share your expertise with us and sharing some of the resources on how we as parents and as an adult to navigate this in new world's internet digital age. I think it certainly is very different from when I started using internet, and but for our children especially, they just have so much more, and they need to be more vigilant. And like you said, it's not letting them use it, but guiding them to use it safely.
For sure. Yeah. And I think that's the key thing is being, you don't have to be a tech expert to know how to navigate the internet. It's just being able to understand how to do things safely in general and
Yeah.
applying those principles to the internet. And again, like I said, open communication with your kids,
Mhm.
having them, share with you how TikTok works, or maybe participating in a TikTok video with them. And I've seen some where,
Yep.
parents or grandparents even are doing that. So,
Yep.
and I think then your children are also going to be more comfortable to come to you, uh, knowing that there's an open line of communication if they have a problem or if there's something they need help with.
Yeah.
Because again, as much as they know the tech side of things, they may not know how to navigate the social side of things.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
what we as parents are there to help. So
They just don't have the life experience and the wisdom.
exactly, right?
Yeah. Well, thank you, Terry. Oh my gosh,
Oh, you're
I'm
welcome. Thank
so
you.
appreciate you coming on as my guest speaker tonight, and
Yeah,
I can't wait to share this information to everybody out there.
for sure.
So yeah, once again, thank you. And if you have any question for everyone that's watching, if you have any question, drop me a note. I'd be happy to share it with Terry and get those information out to you.
For
This
sure.
is Margaret, Dexter Realty, and my guest speaker is Terry Kaplan with Telus.
Thank
And
you.
we'll see you next time. Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.